What's up everyone, Zero here, and I'm back with another basic profit crafting guide for Path of Exile 1. And in this one, we're going to talk about flasks. If you guys find this video helpful at all, please leave a like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And with that, let's get into it. So there are two ways that you can do this. In the very beginning of the league, when nobody has a mage blood, it's best just to craft with just the alteration orbs. So all you're going to need is just a lot of alterations. This one is a little bit more time consuming. However, the markup for what you can sell these for is a lot better than the cluster jewels. For instance, with the cluster jewels, you're spending 40 to 60 chaos on a good base. With these flasks, you can pick them up for 1 chaos. If you get high enough affixes on them, you can sell them for anywhere from 1 to 5 divine, depending. A little later on in the league, once people start getting mage bloods, then you'll want to start using the enkindling orbs. And what these do is they add an enchantment to the flasks so that they look like this. With the increased effect, but gains no charges during effect because the mage blood will constantly be applying the flask. You want to get it to 70% like this one is right here. You want to find flasks like granite flasks, quicksilver flasks, silver flasks, gold flasks are really good. And what you want to do is you want to try to roll the corresponding stat on the flask. So let me give you an example of what I mean by that. I just unidentified this one, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. So since this is a granite flask, it gives 1500 armor. You want to roll max tier 1 increased armor during effect for the suffix. And for the prefix, you want to find something like gains charges when hit. That's probably going to be the most profitable, unless you are trying to roll a mage blood flask, in which case you want increased effect and less duration. A really good thing to do to see what flasks are going to be the most profitable is we pop over here to our handy dandy PoE Ninja. We look at the builds that 17% of the people are running, sort by DPS again, and then we pop over here and we look at the flasks that they're using. This one's a silver flask with max elemental resistances during effect. This one is a ruby flask with increased critical strikes during effect. This one's a sapphire flask with chance to avoid being stunned during effect. Just an idea of what some of these top builds are using for their flasks. Notice how they all have mage bloods. And everybody's going to have different ones because they roll differently. So, for instance, like this one's a Bismuth. That's increased elemental resistances. They have the corresponding stat on that one. However, on this diamond flask, which is increased critical strikes, then this one has a reduced effect of curses on you. So it really just depends on what tier 1 affix you can roll on the flask. But just to give you an idea. And then if we look at some of the builds that do not have a mage blood, let's look at what flasks they're using. So this one is a diamond flask with increased evasion rating. And the prefix that they're using is chance to gain a flask charge when you deal a critical strike. Obviously, they're probably a crit-based build. You can also go with reduced charges per use, just to give you an example of what modifiers people are rolling on these flasks. And you can just try to aim for this, and chances are it's going to be worth at least a few divines. So let's roll it and do it, just for an example. Now, if you end up in a situation like this, where you have increased effect or reduced duration, you can use a orb of augmentation to add another modifier to the flask and just hope you hit. That one we didn't, so let's keep rolling. You always want to check the item level when you're rolling flasks because obviously the higher tier affixes can only roll on the higher item levels. So you want to make sure that they're item level 84. I just rolled a max tier 1 elemental resistances during effect, and even with the flask not being finished with a bad prefix, it's still worth 40 chaos. Just to kind of give you an example of how much profit you can actually make from these, because these flasks only cost a couple chaos. Here's another example of a really good roll. Gain 2 charges when you are hit by an enemy. The max is 3, and it has 58 reduced effective shock on you during effect. So that's only a tier 2 roll, and it's still going for 1 divine. There's even one listed for 2 divine with 20% quality on it. So you could take this and use the glass blower's bauble and quality it up if it's not qualitied, and you could sell that that few chaos flasks that you have for a divine or two. Let's keep rolling. So here we go. Here's a high tier 1 increased armor during effect on a granite flask, and even with the increased charge recovery prefix, which is not the best one, it's still selling for a divine. There we go. That's exactly what I was looking for right there. So I have reduced duration and increased effect because we are going to be rolling this for a mage blood flask. It's 1 off of max. So it's a very high tier 1 increased armor during effect. And then what I can do here is I can use the enkindling orb to put the enchantment on the flask to get increased effect. There we go. 70% increased effect. It's 1% off of being a perfectly rolled flask. This is selling for anywhere from 3 to 5 divines. So there you go. In the beginning of the league, obviously nobody's going to have a mage blood yet. So you just want to roll them like I was showing you before, and you can turn a really good profit doing this. You want to look for the corresponding modifiers on there. For instance, granite, increased armor during effect. Jade, increased evasion during effect. However, you can mix it up. You just want to look for things like evasion, armor, reduced effect of curses. Sometimes corrupted immunity to corrupted blood is good. It just really just depends on what's the meta in the league. So you just kind of got to figure out what everybody's using. PoE Ninja is a really good way to look at the top builds and find out what flasks they are running with their mage bloods, or just on their builds in general. And then this is a very, very easy way to turn a profit. You just buy the flasks for a couple of chaos and make sure they are high item levels so you can get those high rolled affixes on them. And then you just get a bunch of alteration orbs and a few enkindlings. I mean, I went through 400 alteration orbs to get that, and a few enkindling orbs, and yeah, there it is. If it would have been 1% more, probably could have sold it for 5 or 6 divines. But this one will probably go for 3. So yeah, that's it. It's fairly simple. I just want to put that out there. I think that this is a very good way. If you have very little to invest, it's a very good way to turn a good profit. So hope that helps you guys out. If you guys found that useful at all, please consider subscribing, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.